I'm Mike.
I'm Jason.
Welcome to Snake Envy. We did a video earlier that we called Overrated and Underrated in the Hobby. We're going to do a second one. This is something we'll come back to from time to time. There are quite a few things in the hobby that, in our opinions, we either talk about too much, too little, or maybe they're too important, unimportant, and so we're going to give you our opinions on those. Sound good?
Yeah.
So let's start with you on, what should we start with? Underrated?
Yeah.
Let's do underrated. What's your what's your underrated?
Hibernation or brumation. I hear about a lot of people that don't hibernate, and which is fine. I just personally, and it's just my opinion, but it's just mine. But I just feel like, especially with these North American colubrids, like they have a winter and they do brumate, and why not simulate that in captivity? And if, as a breeder, why would you risk, getting infertile eggs because you didn't want to brumate? But more power to you if you do and you're successful. Like, I know it can be done. So I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying, why mess around? Like, it's pretty much a sure thing when you hibernate or brumate.
Yeah, I do hear a lot. Seems like more and more I hear people talk about debating whether it should be done or not.
I hear it a lot with corns and hogs.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
There's no question there's some species where it's less important, but yeah, North American snakes, absolutely. Really anything quite a ways away from the equator, they're doing it in the wild.
Well, Mexico, they're hibernating.
Yeah, absolutely. For my underrated, this one may sound strange, but I'm going to say substrate. I think most people use substrate, but I think it's underrated for a couple reasons. One, I am one of those people that gets annoyed when burrowing species are kept on newspaper and paper towels. Particularly when there's so much talk in the hobby about enrichment and stimulation. You're denying the snake its primary behavior, which is burrowing. And even captive snakes who don't have any need to burrow to get out of weather or to get away from predators, they're still wired to do that. And in my experience, through most of their lives, they do it. Occasionally you'll have adults that do it less. But pretty much all of my snakes take advantage of deep substrate. So I give them all deep substrate. It's interesting, I've told you, even my green tree python, everybody says, just put newspaper below those guys. They don't care about substrate. But I catch him rooting in his substrate all the time with his nose. And I'm assuming it's a hunting behavior. But again, it's just something instinctual that he roots around in his substrate. So even for him, an arboreal snake, I keep substrate below him for that reason. Now, I just wanted to talk a little bit about a substrate that I discovered by accident, which has been my favorite since. And I think this is customary on YouTube where you say, we're not sponsored by the maker of this substrate. But I discovered this by accident. I went to an expo many years ago, and it was one of those terrarium companies, enclosure companies. And they had a variety of snakes, and they had enclosures set up to show off their enclosures. And they had them on this substrate. And they were selling a few different ones, but this is the one they had all the snakes on. Now, they had the snakes on this because of the white color. So it was showing off the snakes. Yeah. Like they had a gaboon viper.
Nice.
Yeah, they had a gaboon viper on this. And that's when I noticed it and was like, wow. So notice how it kind of balls.
Yeah.
There's a couple things I love about this. One, it's very low dust compared to wood chips and wood shavings. even coconut fiber. It's very low dust. We're not leaving a bunch of dust on the table here. It's super absorbent. This is wood pulp. And anytime I post a picture of this online, I almost have to say this is not Carefresh. Everybody assumes it's Carefresh. They assume it's paper. It's similar. It's wood pulp. So it's kind of the step before paper. But if you notice, and we'll show a close-up of it, every piece is different. It's not like aspen shavings where they're all the same. So what happens is they lock together because they're all different. And so it locks them together, and it makes it really dense for tunneling, for burrowing. And so they're able to burrow in it really, really well. Great tunnel openings. Maybe I'll put a picture up of one of the tunnel openings as well. So super absorbent, low dust, great for tunneling and tunnel openings because it locks tight. And my biggest frustration over the years with aspen, when it gets wet and if it has a chance to dry, it's like concrete.
Yeah.
Like trying to get
crusty.
Trying to get it out of water bowls.
Yeah,
and
it's a little crusty.
This stuff, it can get wet. You just scoop it right out of the water bowl and throw it into dry, and it dries in the enclosure, so it doesn't stick to anything when it's wet.
So how long will you keep this substrate in an enclosure? How often do you change it?
It varies. Depends on the species a little bit, like the bulls and gophers and pines.
Dirtier,
maybe like a month to 2 months. But some of my snakes, with spot cleaning, it's so absorbent and it deals with the spot cleaning so well that if you take out, like let's say the poop's here and you take out a little extra and you clean under it, and add back in. So some of them I may only change it every few months, and obviously the smell test, things like that. But
yeah. I mean, I can see with smaller, like I have little milk snakes, and it's like,
yeah,
they, their poops are so small that
yeah,
you're just like
spot clean.
You can almost let them live on that for a year.
Not only do the snakes look great on this white color, they really pop. So does your decor, but poops stand out. And so spot cleaning I've found is easier on this than with natural colored things. Mm. Bull snakes in particular, they'll leave the main pile, but there'll be a trail. And on this stuff, you can see the trail. And it's really easy to get it all. So yes, I have found I'm able to use this longer than some of the other substrates. It's sold in bulk as Diamond Soft, and T-Rex sells it as Desert Snow. The last thing I would say about substrate, gradients. Temperature gradients, if you've got humid species, humidity gradients. Not only is substrate helping you with cleaning and providing burrowing and tunneling for the snakes that enjoy it, but it's also providing a thermal gradient that newspaper, paper towels can't do any of those things with. So in my opinion, substrate still a little underrated for all the benefits that it offers. And like I say, I particularly love this one. All right, overrated.
For me, I'm gonna say food charts, weighing food. Like, I mean, weighing prey. Like, oh my gosh, I would be doing this all for days. Like here, and.
But you also have to weigh the snake.
Well, yeah. Like, I don't have time to do all this.
No.
Or do I need to? I can just look at them and visually tell this is a prey size that's appropriate for this animal. It's not that hard. I mean, this more power to you if you do weigh your animals and keep feed charts. It's just, for me, it's just way overrated. But, I did it when I was a newbie.
Yeah.
Because I was bored and it was so fun and it was so interesting and I wanted to be absorbed in it. And now I'm over-absorbed in it. So, I just don't have time for that.
For the people who have that personality type where it's data, 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 and not only do they weigh and do all that, but they're probably keeping logs. Or I've seen now there's apps where you're keeping track of your snake's weight, their poops, their meals, and all this stuff. I mean, the data entry at some point is going to take longer than the the work of feeding the snake. I don't have any issues at all with anything anybody does that's unique to them. My issue is when, like, the weighing prey is taught to beginners and as the way you have to do it. That's my issue with it. And I agree, it's highly overrated. I only have 7 snakes. You've got 500. I only have 7. I've got time that I could weigh everybody, but it's completely unnecessary. Match the prey to the widest part of the snake.
I mean, like, I'll keep feed charts on stubborn feed, like lizard feeders, like gray bands and mountain kings, and as hatchlings. I'll keep a little food chart on there until they ate about a dozen times, and then I'm like, all right, this snake's good.
You're good.
I understand, like, I get it for that stuff, but like charting the poops and charting how many times they eat and have eaten, and it's like, I just don't understand what that data is ever going to be used for.
Yeah, I think the important thing for beginners is none of that is necessary. If you're driven by data, go for it.
Yeah, data can be a great thing. Like you research. It's a way to research, and I get that. I keep charts on certain things. I keep reading and laying charts. So, but that's the majority of my charting.
Overrated as a necessity. You can raise perfectly happy snakes without doing all that. For me, overrated, I'm going to use the word stress. Is stress a real thing in snakes? Yes. Is stress a real thing for snake keepers? Yes. But I think we overuse that word dramatically. It's come to be kind of a catch-all for any problem somebody's having with us. Well, it must be stress. Your snake is stressed. Number one, it's not very specific. And number two, I think a lot of times what's happening is the keeper stress is being sort of thrust upon the snake. Chances are the snake's just fine. It's the keeper that's stressed. And then when everybody tells them that your snake's not eating because it's stressed, then it's a vicious cycle. The keeper becomes more stressed. They assume the snake is more stressed. But the other thing I don't like about words like that is that there's no specificity. By telling someone their snake is stressed, you're not giving them a problem typically to go fix. Yes, if you set up a snake with no hides whatsoever, it will be stressed. Yeah. At least for a while.
No water, no hides.
Yeah,
certain things. Yes.
If you don't give a brand new snake that break-in period when you take it home and put it in its new enclosure and give it that week where you leave it alone, that can be stressful if you're in there bugging it all the time. Particularly neos, they just view us as some giant predator walking up to the enclosure. So stress is a real thing, but we should be focused more on. If your snake charting. Isn't reading, it's because you didn't chart your meals. That's why your snake's not eating. But does that make sense? I mean, it's just a word we overuse, and we overuse it to death. And the funny thing is that in trying to combat what could be a real thing in a snake for some situations, I think we're just stressing keepers more and more and more. The reason most of these snakes are kept in the pet trade is because they're pretty hardy, they're pretty durable, they do pretty well under most circumstances, and we should focus more on specific issues rather than just using stress as an excuse anytime something's going wrong. So that's my overrated. Nice. ease up on that word and focus on specifics. Please leave us some comments. We'd love to hear your opinions on what's over and underrated in the hobby. It can be anything. It can be an animal. It can be a husbandry thing. It can be anything and everything. But give us some feedback. Let us know, and we'd love to do some future shows based on your questions and comments. Thank you.
Thanks.